Fire magma bleeds, consumes the ground where his shield sears worlds fell heart. Asterisk victory tactical log, 13th Black Crusade asterisk Eldrad Ulthran's voice cracks through the inferno, guards he screams. Fire magma bleeds, consumes the ground where his shield sears worlds fell heart. Asterisk victory tactical log, reduced to ash. It was a lesson in Emperor's dust, shadow in the smoke, a silent architect guiding the Aeldari's hubris to ruin. What prophecy could outpace a god's gambit? The 13th Crusade was never a war, it was a lesson in dust. Eldrad Ulthran did not foresee Cadia's fall, engineered it. The visions in his mind were not truths but traps. The God Emperor bled the warp dry, feeding Eldrad illusions to steer both Aeldari and Imperium toward ruin. For millennia, the Farseer wove history like thread in a loom, blind to the loom's true weaver. What burned on Cadia's plains was never the chaos, warrenly the Emperor's shadow, stretching across a galaxy. The 13th Crusade was no betrayal. It was a sacrifice. The Aeldari's gift of sight was a chain, their hubris the anvil. Did the God Emperor doom the stars to save one? The answer lies in the silence after the stars fell. The Aeldari's decadence reeked of rot. Ulthwar's skies bled violet as its people feasted on pleasure, unaware their excess would birth a god. Eldrad knelt in the Hall of Stars, his mind a sieve for the warp's whispers. The Farseers carved his name into the script of hope. He saw futures bloom like wounds, empires rising, falling, consumed by a hunger not his own. The God Emperor did not speak, the God Emperor did not intervene. Yet Eldrad's visions twisted, framing a lie that the Aeldari could outrun their shadow. Slaanesh's birth was no accident, it was a mirror. The Farseer's sight was a leash, not a light. On Cadia's ash-choked plains, he glimpsed the Imperium's rice, but the image was a phantom. A stage set for a god's gambit, the Aeldari's fall was not a tragedy, it was a transaction. The warp's chaos needed a face. Slaanesh was the price. Eldrad's gift was a wound in reality, letting the ruinous powers bleed into the material. He became a prophet, not a savior. His visions guided the Aeldari straight into the maw they'd fed. The Farseer's chants grew frantic as the stars dimmed. Eldrad's hands, once steady, trembled with the weight of borrowed sight. The God Emperor did not save, he redirected. The Aeldari's excess was never their undoing, it was the bait, and the hook, a seer who saw only what he was made to see. Eldrad moved like shadow through the craft worlds. He did not kill his rivals, he outlasted them. A single vision sold at the right moment could topple a council, crown a false seer, or fracture a dynasty. When the heresy shattered the stars, he stood at the Emperor's threshold not as ally, but as arbiter. The Imperium needed Aeldari weapons. The Aeldari needed Imperial leverage. He gave both sides what they craved while Slaanesh gnawed at his sleeve, a truce sealed in poison. The warp vision was never clarity, it was a mask. The Emperor's hand, unseen, threaded possibilities into Eldrad's mind. A future where the Aeldari danced to his tune, where their excesses bloated the bait. On Cadia's blood-soaked soil, Eldrad saw the Emperor's host fall. But the vision was a lie, a script. The God Emperor let the Aeldari believe they shaped history, let them waste centuries chasing echoes. Every choice Eldrad made during the Unification Wars, every treaty in the Crusade's shadow, each was a thread in the Emperor's loom, a tapestry of sacrifice. The Farseer's power was not a gift, it was a leash. The Ruinous powers knew this, the Aeldari knew this. Eldrad alone walked the razor's edge, blind to the hand guiding him. He brokered peace with Slaanesh, yet starved his own kin of joy. He warned the Imperium of heresies, yet fed them. The Emperor's plan unfurled like a slow poison. The Aeldari's fall was not accident, it was arithmetic. A cost, a necessary fire to burn away the Imperium's doubts, and all the while the God Emperor waited, not in the warp, not in the flesh. In the spaces between choices, he watched. The Farseer's forbidden pact was never with chaos, it was with time itself. A pact where the winner would be the one still standing when the dust settled. The Aeldari are extinct, the Imperium endures. What future will Eldrad see now, if any? The wind howls across Cadia's broken plains. Smoke curls from charred ruins. Eldrad kneels in the ash, his sight blurred by the warp's fevered haze. A vision seizes him, shattered glass of time. He sees the Imperium crumbling, its cities gutted by chaos. But the image fractures, details swallowed by static. The Emperor's voice cuts through the void. Asterisk sacrifice the Aeldari. Asterisk it murmurs. Asterisk their extinction will be your salvation. Asterisk the words are a whisper, a promise, a blade. Eldrad's breath falters. His seer mind screams contradictions. The vision lacks the Emperor's sigil, the weight of truth. Yet the ruinous powers thrash in the distance, their hunger palpable. He grips his staff, its crystal dimmed by doubt. To act is to gamble with the fate of both civilizations. To hesitate is to let the Black Crusade consume all. He chooses. The Aeldari fleets turn from battle, their warriors falling on their own blades. The Imperium's guns blaze unchecked. Cadia burns. When the dust settles, the Aeldari are gone. The Emperor's voice returns, colder now. Asterisk trust no god, not even me. Asterisk the words collapse like a tomb. Eldrad realizes the truth too late. Vision was never a prophecy. It was a asterisk test asterisk, a trap woven by the Emperor's silence. The warp writhes with the Aeldari's dying light. Eldrad feels their souls unravel, not devoured by chaos, but asterisk absorbed asterisk. Their psychic power, their ancient will funneled into a shield the Imperium cannot yet see. The Emperor's plan was never to save the Aeldari. It was to weaponize their end. Dread curdles in Eldrad's chest. He was not a savior, he was a pawn. The Emperor's silence was not absentee, was asterisk calculation asterisk. The Aeldari's fall was not inevitable. It was asterisk orchestrated asterisk. The stars above flicker. Somewhere the Emperor watches. His voice fades into the static. The Imperium endures. The Aeldari are dust. And Eldrad, Farseer of a dead race, wonders if the greatest heresy was not to trust a god but to believe one could be trusted asterisk at all asterisk. But to understand what happens next, you must understand what Eldrad gave up. His sight was no gift, but a snare woven not by chaos, but by a shadow longer and colder. The Emperor showed him futures that never were, to steer a race too proud to kneel. What if the greatest sacrifice was not in losing the stars, but in learning the light was never his to hold? Eldrad saw the end of the Imperium, a vision that was never his to trust. The Emperor's shadow stretched into the warp, threading lies through the seer's mind. Aeldari fleets fled the stars, sealing the webway's gates, while the god Emperor let Cadia burn. What did the Farseer see? A future shaped by the past he refused to face. The Aeldari had nurtured Slaanesh in their own decadence, their art, their hunger. Their fall was written in the poison of their own making. The Emperor did not save him, he used him, a pawn to close the door. A soul to bear the weight. Eldrad watched his kin wither, their cities hollowed by the void's cold kiss. He screamed into the dark, but the stars had already turned their backs. The visions never showed the truth, that the Aeldari's end was not a prophecy, but a harvest. The Emperor's war against Slaanesh required a sacrifice greater than steal a species' will to live. Cadia's death was the lock, the Aeldari's extinction the key. Eldrad's hands are stained not with blood, but with the silence of the dead. He knew. And still the webway echoes with the whispers of what he could not stop. How many lives for one war? How many gods for one god's tomb? The Farseer walks alone now, his sight unclouded. The light he sought was never his to hold. Only the cost, only the cost. The visions Eldrad saw were not windows to fate. They were golden threads of a snare. The Emperor's silence was no absent seat, was a cipher. For 10,000 years, the Farseer wove his people's doom on a loom of lies. What he called wisdom was a script written in the blood of futures that never were. On Cadia's ash-choked plains, Eldrad watched the Emperor's hosts fall. Or did he? The battle he perceived was a phantom, a stage play for a pawn. The God Emperor's true war raged in shadows, against forces no blade could sever. Eldrad's prophecies guided the Aeldari to slaughter, not salvation. Their exodus was a dirge, their wars a distraction, their light a sacrifice. Did the Farseer know? Did he weep for a species he never saved? His soul, fractured by the warp's hunger, clings to the webway's bones. A nameless wraith, he drifts where starlight dies. The Emperor's silence is his prison. No mercy, no reckoning, only the weight of a debt paid in kind. The Aeldari fell not to chaos, but to the void between stars, the void the Emperor carved. A martyr's death, a god's ascension. Eldrad's spirit, once a beacon, now murmurs in the static between realms. A ghost who shaped empires with his grief. A prophet who saw only what he was made to see. The webway hums with his unspoken question. Was the Imperium's salvation worth the price of a soul? The answer lies in the silence. The answer lies in every star the Emperor shielded from the warp's rot. Eldrad's leash was never broken. It was a bridge, a thread. A tether to a god who spoke only in shadows. The cost was never his to bear. The cost was the Imperium. Eldrad's spirit drifts through the webway's hollow veins, a broken oracle, a whisper of the Emperor's shadow, fractured and fading. The Imperium marches on, blind to the thread that was cut. Its wars against chaos consume the same stars he once watched. What the Farseer saw on Cadia phantom battlefield, a lie woven by the warp's breath. The ruinous powers carved their riddles into his mind, masquerading as prophecy, a trap dressed as salvation. The Emperor's will was never in the visions. Only their absence, a gambit to sever the Aeldari's hold on reality, their hubris undone by their own faith in sight. Now Eldrad's soul is a cipher, hunted by forces that do not know his name. The webway hums with static where his voice once shaped fate. Whispers dissolve into static, the Imperium's engines roar, the stars burn. And in the labyrinth's heart, a Farseer waits unseen, unwhole, a relic of a war that never ends. Echoes, always echoes, 184 words. The mirror cracks where the two stand, Eldrad, gaunt and hollow-eyed, his fingers curled around a shard of the astronomican's dying light. The Emperor, aloft in his sarcophagus, a god sculpted from the same dust as the stars he cannot save. Both bore the weight of 1,000 tombs, both chose silence. The Farseer's visions were not truths but traps, threads of the Emperor's will woven into the warp's rot, guiding Eldrad's gaze to Cadia's Pyrea stage set to burn. What the Aeldari see or witness at a galaxy's death, rattle was a lie polished to a mirror's sheen. The Emperor's hand, unseen, pushed the Aeldari to their precipice, their war a gambit to starve chaos of fuel. The warp reeks of iron and old blood. Eldrad's mind, a labyrinth of seethed prophecies, now aches with the taste of betrayal. He sees the Emperor's face in the void's black glass, a father, a jailer, a ghost who traded his son's people for a flicker of hope. The Aeldari fall not to chaos alone, but to the Emperor's calculusa subtraction that leaves the galaxy bleeding. Eldrad's silence is a dirge. The Emperor's a hymn, both are prisoners, both are kings, the stars dim. The cold comes, and in the mirror's shatter no reflection answers, only dust. Only the weight of a god's unspoken truth. Salvation is a shadow, and even shadows fade. 230 words. Eldrad Ulthran's voice echoes in the warp static, a prisoner of visions that were never his to see. The Emperor's silence on Cadia's flames was no absence. It was a choice. What if the Farseer's warnings were not truths but traps? Threads woven by a god who knew the Aeldari's pride would blind them to their own extinction. The stars remember his final cry, *, we are the architects of our own undoing. But what waits in the void beyond even the Emperor's reach when the price of salvation is the erasure of a species? The wind howls through empty spires. A soul, unburied, whispers in a language no one recalls. The Emperor's shadow stretches long, longer than the fall. Deeper than the void. What if the Emperor's silence was his deadliest weapon? Eldrad saw Cadia's fall not truth, but a shadow play woven by the god Emperor. A trap to blind the Aeldari, a sacrifice to buy the Imperium's survival. Did the War Master's blade strike first, or was loyalty